Welcome back, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast and your Sports Illustrated beat writer covering the silver and black. If you missed yesterday's program, you missed Christmas in the month of May. We were joined by this man right here, who is an absolutely renowned, respected offensive mind in the game of the National Football League. Gave 40 years of his life, longtime Raider coach, coordinator, Super Bowl winner. Everything associated with this man screams NFL respectability, integrity, character. And as soon as this podcast is over, you got to go watch yesterday's because it was phenomenal. And Coach Tom Walsh is back again today. We're going to get into a lot of different issues. We're going to talk about the Raiders have a new, and it's not normal in the NFL, rare two elite tight ends. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all the weapons in the offense. We're going to get more into Aiden O'Connell. We're going to get into more on something I started to talk about earlier in the week, which is coming to the line of scrimmage with two plays able to be called. We're going to get into all of it. But before we do, let's just welcome him in, the legend, Coach Tom Walsh. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing well, Hondo. Good morning, and I'm glad we're doing this. It's fun. I love it. It's football.
Well, I love talking football too. So, Coach, I want to get in right away. And you've been around the game a long time. You've heard the term dog. And I have tried to explain to our listeners and readers that in the NFL, when it comes to the draft, when they call somebody a dog, or excuse me, a dude, not a dog, a dude. A dude is a can't miss guy. A dude is a guy that they look at and they're like, we look at this from every angle possible. There are very few dudes in any draft. Almost everybody comes with risk. But one of the most respected drafters in the National Football League told me in early March, he said, to me, there are only three dudes: Joe Alt, Talise Fawaga, both of them offensive tackles, and Brock Bowers. The Raiders did not think there was any chance Brock Bowers would fall to them at 13. He is a generational talent. I was told by a general manager that there has not been a tight end in the National Football League draft like this since Gonzalez, which tells everyone that guy was one of the best ever. He blocks like an offensive lineman. He catches like a wide receiver. He can run. You can put him everywhere. It wasn't a matter of the Raiders needed a tight end. You can't turn your back on this guy. Now, as the Raiders have been looking through, how are we going to do our offense, which they want to run first and then attack vertically. That's their goal of this offense. They're looking at all different ways. And I broke the story that they've gone back and looked at film at Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. And I don't want anyone to, this isn't about what Aaron Hernandez did off the football field. We're talking on the football field. When they look at everything that those guys did, they're getting a lot of ideas. But, Coach, you know this isn't the first time in Raiders history they've had two elite tight ends. And they've got Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, who are two number ones. You look at all that they can do. This is amazing. I would love to hear your brilliance spill over and educate us, Coach.
Well, I'll try to give it my best shot and contribute little morsels along the way, and hopefully it adds up to an interesting palette of a conversation.
Tell us, what would you do if Al Davis had said to you, okay, Tom, here is Michael Mayer that can block, run, catch, do everything. And oh, by the way, here's Brock Bowers with the speed of a wide receiver, running ability of a running back, blocking ability of an offensive tackle. How do you run your offense knowing their goal is vertical and running?
Well, the number one thing I think that is really important, and this goes back to Al and even Sid and the philosophy that they had in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, you have to have a tight end who is a threat, who cannot be covered by a linebacker. Because if I can have that individual at the tight end position that requires and demands that the opponent has to put a safety on him, that means that both of my wide receivers cannot be double covered. I've got to have single coverage out there. And see, if you don't have that kind of tight end, now your safeties and corners can double the two wideouts, and your linebackers can banjo and play in and out and combo up and cover the linebacker, the tight end who can't get vertical and be a threat. And see, that's number one. Your passing game has to have a vertical challenge in the interior of the formation so that you're going to get single coverage on the outside. Now, with a 12 personnel grouping, which is the 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and a single running back, now the other thing I can do from a formational perspective, I can balance up the defense. They cannot play an over or an under shifted front tilted to or away from a single tight end. So now I have a complementary set. I draw a line down the middle. I have the same number of blockers to the left. I got the same number of blockers to the right. The defense has to match up with that. If they don't, they're going to have to bring down another defender in the box. You know, the theory about, well, we're going to play a 7 in the box and we're going to play 4 high across the board. We're going to play quarters coverage and we're going to have the 2 safeties play at 9 yards off and they're going to freeze their feet at the snap, you know, buzz their feet and then read, run or pass. And then they're going to be a late filler in the run game. I'm sorry, you line up in a balanced 12 set personnel grouping. I can run outside zone left. I can run outside zone right. I can run inside zone left. I can run inside zone right. So now as a quarterback, I get up to the line, and the beauty of it is I can have an L call and an R call, and I can say, hey, Larry or Robert, and then, or I can use a player's jersey number, you know, whatever I have as an indicator that can tell the line to which side I'm going to run the play. I now have a great RPO scheme, run pass option, where I can pick a conflicted defender who has to play the run. And then now I've got a pass concept tied to that run scheme. So if that defender who's the conflicted defender steps up to play the run read, then now I can throw the ball to the receiver who's tied in to that scheme to attack that conflicted defender in that zone, in that area vacated. And then also the great thing I love about having this kid, I watched him when he was a youngster playing at Georgia. I thought, oh my God, this kid is a talent and a half. And I think he was maybe just playing some as a freshman and some as a sophomore. The guy just lit the place up. And so that's a blessing. And that he also has inline skill. By that, I mean as an attached tight end, but I also can detach him from the box. So now I can go to, I put slot on one side of the field. I can split him on the backside on the other outside of my. Now I do that. Who's going to go out and cover the kid? Is a linebacker going to go? Is a safety going to go? Well, if they got the safety kicked that way to cover him, now how does he match up against that strong safety who's out there in coverage? I got one-on-one packages. I got routes. I can go with hand signals to give him what part of the tree I want him to run one-on-one. I've got a combo set on the other side if I'm in slot where I got, now are they going to play me deuce or tray coverage to my slot side? Are they going to go 2-on-2 over there, or are they going to kick the safety over the top and go 3-over-2 and have an umbrella over the top? Now I definitely got single coverage on the backside. So now as a quarterback, I'm Aiden, I'm under center. I can use dummy calls to be able to make the defense have to show their hand. Okay, and I get the pre-snap read. I'm keying Jack and Jill to see which way the safeties are going. And then if they kick it this way, bam, I'm over here throwing to the rook one-on-one. And he's got a size advantage. He's got a speed advantage. And now it's a matter of execution. I've got to be able to have routes that he can execute and then throws I can make. And then, hey, move the sticks. We're going down the field. I can run choice routes, odd option routes, read routes, you know, certain coverages. You know, I've got to be able to have a bender going down the middle. If they're going to play a cover 2 shell on me, someone's going to rock and roll and hit the hole between 18 and 22 yards, and the kid can fit the ball in over the top of the backer, and we got to play. And he's both tight ends. You've got great height. You've got great wingspan. You've tremendous catch radius. So now as a quarterback, I don't have to be able to thread the eye of the needle all the time. When I got a wingspan like those 2 young men have got, you know, I can miss by a few inches and they still can reach out and snag it and catch it with their hands. And they have that surface area. And they got hands like pie plates. I mean, you know, they're big. They're like carrying around first baseman gloves as hands to catch the ball. You know, I'm not dealing with some 6'1", you know, 235 or 45-pound guy. I got weapons. Oh my God, it's just like light up the scoreboard. You know, you got to, you know, you got there. It's phenomenal, the opportunities that he brings. Now, the key thing to make it work, I've got to have a complementary run game. Okay. Number two, I got all these weapons out there with Devontae and I got the two tight ends. I got to be able to protect the kid. You know, you can't make the throw and it's tits to the sky. I've got to be able to allow him to get into the pocket, set his feet, you know, hitch up, bang, the ball can come out. I gotta provide him the adequate protection to a play action schemes as well as brought back schemes. I have to, and the other thing that's a secret, Hondo, is that, and Sid always preaches to me. He goes, kid, look at every fourth or fifth pass, you got to move the pocket. Now, see, I cannot always have the quarterback just get set at the same setup spot all the time, because even a blind pig gets an acorn once in a while, meaning the defensive line can fall into a sack because they can rush to a spot knowing that that's where you're going to be as a quarterback. I got to move the quarterback. I got to have bootlegs. I got to have nakeds. I got to have waggles. I've got to move. I got to set up what we used to call a P4 and a P5. I got to push my pocket to the hip of the tackle. I got to get to a Q8 or a Q9, you know, where I take it outside wide. I got to run the naked. So that way the defensive front can't always just tee off, and they got to think about, okay, where is he now? Where is he going to be? And so you got to force the defense to put up the caution flags in their pass rush mode, so you just can't rush with blinders and blinkers on and just go straight ahead and charge. And then that helps my offensive line with the play action package, because I'm not always, I tell you, Art Shell, when he was playing tackle, told me all the time, he said, now look at, he says, you're calling this stuff now. He says, don't start the game with some passive play where I got some defensive line going to tee off and knock me, and you know, snot bubbles are going down my nose, because then he feels he's in control. Let me come off the ball and hit him and deliver the message. And see, you got to mix it up. And so that's where you run some aggressive play action pass, you run some slide play action pass, you run some action pass, you know, things like that, and have you don't need to have a tremendous inventory, but you have to have a variety. It's like going to Baskin Robbins, you know, you got 31 flavors from which to choose, you know, mix it up. You know, don't get stuck always over on the rocky road, you know, even though chocolate is great. You know, sometimes, you know, and you can't be vanilla all the time. You know, you got to mix your flavors. Same thing in play calling. And then I just to add this one thing, I think this is so important. I mean, I used to have some great conversations with Sid and Al about players, and it's a game about players. Okay. Up in the press box, I had these 8.5 by 11 yellow cards. I had one for Cliff. I had one for Tim Brown. I had one for James Jett. I had one for Todd Christensen. I had one for Marcus. I had one for Bo. I had one for Eric Dickerson. I had one for Willie Galt, Mervin Fernandez, Dokie Williams, everybody. Plays that featured them. I also had a playlist for each of the quarterbacks that they went through, and they would number their game plan in each segment: drop back pass, play action pass, pocket movement, screens, draws, third down and 1, third and 2 to 4, third and 4 to 6, third and 7 to 9, third and 10 to 12. And they would number their plays how they liked them. They all weren't the same. Each quarterback had his plays. Each receivers, we had an inventory for them, and the inventory grew as the season went on. We're sitting in the press boxes go, I talked to Mark Ortega, who was up there with me, for example, and he says, well, you know, it's been 5 plays. We haven't gotten Timmy a ball. Okay, I pull up the Tim Brown sheet. Okay, here's the pass. Here's number 1. Here's number 2. Here's number 3. Or if the quarterback's struggling with pressure and getting knocked around a bit, I pull out his list and say, what is his number 1 pass that he numbered number 1 that he likes the most? We're calling that play to get him back in rhythm, get him back into the flow of the game, get him back into continuity, and get the sticks moving. And then we're going to go from there.
Coach, I was told by a Super Bowl winning quarterback when he looked at the Raiders selection of Bowers with Devontae, with Jacoby, with Michael Mayer, Zamir White, he said, the only thing I can think is the word slants. He goes, they are going to make people miserable. He goes, tight end slants, wide receiver slants. He goes, there's going to be so many different ways that if you want to put pressure to get the ball out quick, if you decide we're gonna play defense, let you stay in the pocket, we'll just wait. I mean, your thoughts when you look at all these weapons and you hear the word slants.
that is one of the most overrun routes in the league. And now defenses look for it. That's why a lot of the RPO concepts that flourished several years ago have now devalued themselves, because people now, defense is going to study, how do I beat the RPO package? I'm going to play the slant first. We got to go to some different routes in the tree to take advantage of it. Okay. It's not always about the slants. Oh my God. We were not a big believer. I tell you, I would never have called for Plunkett or Mark Wilson or anyone to throw Cliff Branch's slant. I mean, I'm not sending a great world-class Hall of Fame wide receiver to run a slant route and throw the ball at him at 11 yards and have a safety come down and light him up. Oh my God, Al would have just, thrown me out of the press box. When you got a guy who's a touchdown maker, I'm thinking 2 through and beyond the secondary. The guy's a vertical threat. You got Devontae out there. The great thing about the slant route, from my perspective, is I want the sluggo route. I want the slant and go. I'm going to get you by. I may throw a slant, or I may have you run a slant without the ball coming to you early in the game. We're setting this guy up because we're coming back with a slant and go, with a sluggo route. We're going to go over the top, and we're going to let you bite on that slant concept that the whole league is thinking is the flow of the game. And then we're going to go over the top of it and give you a double move. We're going to run the hitch and go. We're going to run the quick out and up. We're going to run the out and up. We're going to run pump routes. So we're going to use my speed, your moves and techniques, stems, and all that to set up the big play.
So this guy said to me that what he liked about slant was it got people to bite and opened up things down the field. And he talked about, he said he thought the most valuable, remember, this is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, the most valuable route in football is the 9. He says it's also the least properly used. And he goes, when you look at those tight ends and guys having to be worried about slants and all that you can do close, he goes, a 9 route executed. Now, there are some people that call a 9 a 7 because it stands for a touchdown, 7 points. It's the vertical game, which is what Antonio Pierce says he wants. What do you think about his observation of the 9 route or the 7 and how it can be effective using those slants as decoys?
Well, the thing is, running a route also involves some stems. Okay, you can't run a route with the same stem all the time. Okay, we've got to, you got to show a little bit different to have the DB influenced by certain things. But the thing about the 9 route, the vertical route, the go route, the up route, whatever they want, the fly pattern, etc., there is a whole concept about that, from which I learned. I was maybe 24 years old working with Sid at his passing camp down at the University of San Diego. And he talked about the hypotenuse of the 9 route. And so think about it. If you take a line from the quarterback out to the wide receiver and go vertical up the field, okay, you've got the 2 legs of a right triangle. So the quarterback, you're throwing the hypotenuse of the right triangle. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so if Pythagoras was correct, I should be able to throw a 9 route in my sleep, predicated upon the wide receiver. Now, I see all these theories over the years. I tell you what, we were up there in Seattle one time, and I'm listening to their concept of how they throw, how they practice throwing them. They put a trash can 40 yards down the field, okay? And the quarterback takes a drop, sets his feet, steps up, and throws the ball to try to throw it in the trash can. And I'm looking at Chuck Knox, great head coach, great run coach. They called him Brown Chuck for a reason, okay? He wasn't the air raid. He wasn't Air Coryell. He was Ground Chuck. And that told you something right there. And I told him, I said, Coach, now let me say this. I know you're a veteran. You've got all these glory and stats and honors as a head coach. But I tell you, let's say I got a Branch over here and I got a Blitnikoff over here. Okay. I got a guy who runs like the wind. Okay. I got this other guy, Freddie, can catch. He's got great stems. He runs routes with precision, feedings, and all that. But God bless America. Clifford's going to be beyond that 40-yard trash can, and Fred might not quite be there. How can you put the can at 40 yards and tell the quarterback to throw the ball to land at 40 yards? Clifford's at 53. Freddie's at 37. you got to throw the route predicated upon the guy. So the whole secret to the hypotenuse of the 9 route is, think about this. I got to pick a spot 5 yards inside the inside shoulder of the wide receiver. Okay, that runs the vertical length of the field. Now, you as a receiver can line up out there as a split end and give me at least 7, maybe 9 yards off the boundary. But once you take your release, I want you no closer than 5 yards from the sideline. But once you do your stem, your release, and your sprint phase, and when you level off and run vertical, stay vertical. Don't fade, don't float, don't drift. Now, the quarterback is going to throw the ball through this imaginary line that's 5 yards inside your inside shoulder, up the field with trajectory. And if you run vertical, and here comes the hypotenuse of the right triangle, we're going to intersect. The ball's going to drop in right over your top. We're not going to hit the hot dog vendors. We're not going to have the ball landing out of bounds. We're not going to be throwing the ball and landing over there on the cheerleaders or whatever. It's going to be in the guy's hands, over the top, number 3 trajectory. And that's how you practice. And then each player, quarterback and wide receiver, get an understanding of who they are and how they handle things, whether it's bump and run, whether it's soft coverage or whatever. And that is the way you do it. And it's mathematics. Otherwise, Pythagoras was wrong thousands of years ago. It's the right triangle. It's the hypotenuse of the right triangle. That's it. That's your arc. That's your trajectory. That's where you throw the ball. You can get off the bus, and if you can mentally, as a quarterback, line that concept up in your mind and be able to throw it through that spot, you can complete it. I did a clinic one time at Pomona Pitzer College, and I took a guy out of the stands when we're talking. We did a clinic on the 9 route. There's a stands full of all these coaches. I brought a guy out. I didn't know him from Adam. I said, here, get out there, line up at the right side as the wide receiver. I want you to run down the field. I'm going to throw the ball up on, we're going to run the 9 route. And I threw the thing up there and he caught it. Well, I just threw the hypotenuse of the right triangle. I didn't know the guy from Adam, but I threw it on him, not on him, not to a spot that is so nebulous that's never going to be consistent. The consistency is the receiver and the quarterback, not a trash can 40 yards down the field. And now you do that with Devontae and Ja'Cory and all these other great talents and the tight ends, you're going to be sitting pretty.
If you haven't learned something today, you are literally not listening. I consider myself to be well-versed in the game of football, and I have never heard the 9 route. And I've sat in on clinics on passing trees, explained like that with Pythagorean theorem. That is awesome. We're with Coach Tom Walsh. Coach, I want to talk about the weapons, but I want to flip sides of the ball. You are an offensive guru. You are respected as an offensive savant. But the Raiders defense after Antonio Pierce took over was the #1 rated defense in the National Football League. They've added more weapons to it. Add the best defensive tackle, arguably 1A or 1B, and Christian Wilkins. To me, it is shameful that Patrick Graham is not a head coach in this league, as good of a defensive mind as he is. This team attacks. They come after you. They're physical. They do not get penalties. They were the least penalized team in the NFL after Antonio Pierce took over. I don't think that they get enough credit for being the weapon that they are defensively. And you saw them last year when they tried to change the offense, say to Aiden, just don't cost us a game and our defense will keep it in. Being an offensive guru, how big of a weapon is that defense, sir?
Well, the thing about it is, from my perspective, it's like Lester Hayes, 3 and out. That's the mantra that the defense has to have. Okay, we're 3 and out. Now, the thing being, you become a field position team as well, because if I can get 3 and outs or shorten possessions by the opponent, force them to punt, get the turnovers, I'm now going to put the offense in a more advantageous position. Now, think about this. In the kicking game, punt return, kickoff return, every 10-yard return or more I get, that's 1 less first down the offense has to make. Okay, it's hard to have 90-yard and 80-yard drives all the time. You think about that, it's tough. And the other thing that factors into it is, especially with Crosby and these guys, these young guys who can rush like great, I get strip sacks. I get this. I get, I can get advantageous field position because the defense can give me turnovers. Then now on the offense, bam, we got to be able to capitalize. When I get that, man, it's like, I've been gifted the ball with great field position because of my defense. So that helps me as well. And it keeps the opponent on the bench and allows us also to play the clock to our advantage. Do we want to go with NASCAR? Do we want to go turbo? Do we want to just, how do we want to play the clock? And then now that helps with the run game. If I am getting the ball more frequently, I now have a chance to grind and pound a little bit on the opponent with the run game, the play action game. I don't have to sit back there and wing it all the time because my defense is like Swiss cheese and I'm giving up yards, and now I'm throwing the ball more than I have to and more than I want to. So the defense can now make the offense better. It's called complementary football. And so also as a coordinator in offense, I don't have to be so worried about always getting the big shot and the big play because I know I'm not playing from behind all the time. And so I can work the scheme, I can work the offense, I can feature all the players, I can move the ball. It's my sprint spots in the run game. My tempo, my depth of my drops in the passing game can change. My pocket movement schemes. I can go more to, disguise and distract schemes rather than have to say, oh my God, we're down by 14 and we're down by 18, we're down by 21. And then your whole mindset based upon the game time and the clock management and all that changes. And then you become an always and a never guy. And you don't want to be always and never. I always do this and I never do that. Well, you got to get out of that mold and you got to do what you want to do. And that when you got the defense that can do that for you, you're up points already because of how great they are.
Great point. So, Coach, I was talking to a man that's universally credited as being a defensive savant. He's not on the Raiders' schedule this year. So he and my wife and his wife were having dinner. And I said to him after the draft, I said, can you tell me, since you're not playing the Raiders this year unless it's the playoff, how would you attack this offense? And this is what he told me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. He said, the two tight ends are elite, but neither one of them has been elite in the NFL yet. He goes, so I'm literally going to make them beat me. He goes, no, I believe in them both. He goes, I wanted them both, even though I'm a defensive guy. He said, so I believe in them. He goes, because once they prove to you, he goes, they're going to be as close to unstoppable as you can be in the NFL. He said a 12 set with two elite tight ends, two elite wide receivers, and an elite running back, he goes, is probably the most dangerous offense that I feel as a defender. I thought it was not hyperbole. I thought that was brilliant analysis. What do you think about what he says about the potential of the Raiders offense?
Well, the great thing about it is when you have all those weapons on the field at the same time, and they've got to play pretty much a base defensive scheme, whether it's a 3-man front, 4-man front. But, it's hard for them to go to a nickel package because they think they need extra safeties or corners to cover people, because then your run game in a 12 set opens up big time. If you've got to, so the thing about it is, am I going to play the man, or am I going to play a cover 4 kind of concept across the board? 4 quarters. I can't even play quarter halves because it's touchdown on the side you're playing quarters. I mean, you talk about lighting up the scoreboard. Bring out the band, and the Rockets are firing off the top of the board because you see quarters coverage. There's 6 points on every play. You can't diagram enough touchdown plays when I see quarter halves concept. Playing cover 2 over here, playing cover 4 over there. I'm sorry. PAT team, get ready. We're on the field next play because we're going to go deep off this set. That look there. So I've got, but the thing about it is now, the key thing offensively is the play caller's got to say, I've got to establish each of these individual guys within the first series and a half as a weapon on offense. I've got to have a script where I have player-specific patterns, which I want to call, to get each of these guys the ball early so the defense knows that they are legitimate and they're going to be weapons with whom they're going to have to deal for the entire ball game. I can't let 12 plays go by before I've thrown a ball to receiver X or tight end Y. I got to get them all in the game. So now my key thing in my first series, when I come out there, even if you script it, but I've got to sit there and say, I want to get the ball to these guys. I've got to call plays that are player specific to establish them as weapons. And then now I see how the defense is going to adjust to what I've done. Then now that gives me opportunities to see what they're doing. Now that brings me to a point where I can now go to player A, player B, player C, predicated upon what the defense is starting to do to take away the guys who are making the plays. But I gotta, it's like as a quarterback, I'm a dealer at a poker game. I've got to deal the cards out. I got to give the ball to X, to Y, to Z, to H, to F. And I've got to give them distribution so they all have a pat hand. My goal is for them all to have royal flushes in terms of their skill set and their playmaking. And so I got to get them the ball. I've got to have a design. I've got to build a Rolodex, an inventory for each of these kids to get them the ball so they can be featured and be featured as weapons so that the defense has to deal with them. And now defensively, they are at the mercy of execution. I've got to execute it. That now that they're open, they're established weapons. But my job, Aiden, get them the ball. Get it, Coach, let them place for you.
So I was sitting with him and our wives, and I asked him, I said, as a defensive guy, what scares you about this offense? And he shared something with me that I talked about several days ago, and you mentioned it in yesterday's podcast, and I promised everyone we'd go back to it because we did not plan what we were going to discuss other than the 4 topics. And he said this. He said, the worst things for me as a defender, and he's very well respected as one of the best defensive minds in football, is when they come and there's 2 plays called. There's a play for the right side and a play for the left side, and nobody has to talk. They just look and see the lineup. You don't have to say Omaha. You don't have to say hee-haw. You just look, and if you've got smart players who are well coached, they know, okay, the way it's set, we're going to the left. It's a pass or run based on this. The way they're set, we're going to the right. It's a pass or run on this. He goes, there's really 4 plays. And he goes, you can't defend that because this isn't the old days when you walk to the line of scrimmage with 1 play. He taught to me, and you mentioned it yesterday, and you are an elite offensive mind. Can you allow fans to understand that concept of coming to the line with multiple plays and the play is called based on the read, sir?
You know, that's where the game, you know, hopefully the defense is playing checkers and you're playing chess. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you got to strategize. And the thing about it is the players today with the video and all that, they can look out there on the field and they know, the receiver knows if and when the play is going to be coming to them because they're looking at the secondary, they're looking at the defensive front, they're analyzing this thing. You know, as a wide receiver, if Devontae split out, he not only is seeing his corner, he's got to split his vision in a triangular basis where he's looking at the safety, looking at the corner, and seeing the ball. So he's got to have his hat in a vision to see those 3 elements to be able to play. And he can see the movement as soon as he goes. He doesn't just lock onto the corner. That vision scans, and he can see how the safety to his side is reacting. He sees how the corner's reacting. Okay, so he knows he's live. Okay, also there's hand signals that you can give her. I tell you, one time we got Jeff Hostetler playing quarterback. Timmy Brown's playing on the right side of the formation. We're playing the Broncos, which was like, oh, I am in the parking lot at Kmart. Boy, I love that. And you know, Haas is going to make a check. Timmy's lined up on the ball, and we had a read route to him, and he's shaking his hands like, don't be checking, Jeff. Don't be checking. I see it. I see it. Run the play. Run the play. And he's waving his hands like, no. Don't check this. Haas draws back. Denver blitzes on the strong side, opposite of Timmy. Bam. Haas hits a touchdown. And see, you've got players who are so bright, they can see what's happening. He saw that free safety starting to cheat to the strong side. He knows he's one-on-one on the backside by himself. It's the Grand Canyon out there. Another thing where Mark Wilson's a quarterback, Doki Williams was playing wide receiver for us back in the early 80s, UCLA kid, great talent from Oceanside, world-class triple jumper, him and Henry Elder when they came out in the draft, the two best triple jumpers in the country, playing wide receiver in the NFL. And he's running a bang 8 route off of we're running an option route to the left side, and he's got the 12-yard break at the 20 post on the backside, the short post. We called it an 8 pole. And Mark drops back, bang, sticks the ball. Doki runs the route, makes the break, and he stuck it right in Doki's armpit against the Niners. Touchdown. And they knew the ball was coming there. And see, that's the great thing. They know it's coming. They're alert for it. They're alive for it. So now when the quarterback comes up to the line, I've got to play to the right. I got to play to the left. I can have a mixer, as I call it, where we have one concept to the left that can attack a coverage, one concept to the right that can attack a coverage. They're not mirrored plays. See, that's the other thing. The game no longer can be everybody run hooks and two backs run flats. No, I've got to have, I can put that on a half side of the field over here, and then I have a different concept to my left side. So I can run a slant and a shoot route over here. I can run Hank over here on the right side. I can run Texas over here, and I can run, Chico over here on the left side, the smash concept. Now, if it's a cover 2, hey, I'm going to throw the smash concept. If it's a safety's high 4 quarters and all that, bam, I'm over here I'm throwing Texas, I'm throwing Hank. So now the quarterback knows that he's not stuck where he has a single field read that's a full field read progression where he's locked into that one concept. So therefore, the defense now is defending more than just a single concept as well. They have, just like they can mix their secondary calls and play cover 2 here, play cover 4 over there, play cover 1 here, play cover 3 over there. We're going to play 3 Mabel. We're going to play, quarter halves. I now am allowing the quarterback he has the queen on the chessboard. Okay, they can move in any direction that he wants to go. He can take it in the run game, the same thing. I can have outside zone over there, and I have inside zone over here, for example, or I have a counter gap scheme, and he can say, we go into the game plan and say, okay, Aiden, we want you to run the inside zone to the 1 technique. We want to run inside power to the 3 technique. And we got it called, and so he makes an R call or an L call, and that tells it, hey, we're going left, we're going right. Well, the right side knows they're running inside zone. The left side knows that if he checks to them, they're running power already. There's no audible. They already have the play in their brain. The hard part, what I get into, is some of these players get up to the line and on the headset, they've got 3 or 4 plays, and they're making kill playing. And they're saying can, or kill, check. Now, the players all across the board have to rethink the whole thing. The 40-second play clock's running. They've got to get set. The defense could be stemming and moving. And now the player has to cycle through those 3 or 4 plays you gave them and say, okay, on this play, I do this. Well, you know what? Sometimes they get caught in mid-stride. The ball's got to be snapped, and you get a busted play. But when you have the other concept with the mixers already into it, they already know what they got. So it's already set for them.
If you've not enjoyed these last 2 days of podcast, you don't like football, period. I don't care. This has been like sitting at the feet of the guru and just getting fed. I have loved it. I've enjoyed it. The great Tom Walsh. Coach, one last question from me. Probably maybe 2. But I was on an airplane. Yeah. I was on an airplane years ago headed to London, England. And I sat next to a man who worked for a professional soccer team in England. And we were visiting back and forth, and we started talking. Now, this is before I covered the Raiders. Matt Millen is one of my dear friends, so I hold the Raiders in huge regard because of that. Growing up, in the early 80s, at Monday night, my dad would order a pizza, and we would sit down and watch Monday Night Football. I grew up in Michigan, and it was almost always the Raiders. So, although I was not a Raider fan, tons of Raider respect. And this man said to me, he was sitting to my right. He goes, do you realize how much American football has impacted European soccer? And I laughed at him because I'm not a big soccer fan. I don't like it at all. But he said to me, I go, how's that? He goes, Al Davis. And he spent an hour teaching me how Al Davis had impacted European soccer with the way he ran his franchises, how franchises in Europe changed pouring rights, and the way that he handled all kinds of free agencies and sponsorships. And from that day forward, I have always maintained, and I still maintain today, excuse me, that Al Davis is probably the greatest sports general manager in any professional sports because he impacted all of them around the world. Having said that, as great of a general manager as he was in a football mind, and I revere him, he's not just a football icon, I think he's an American icon. His son, Mark, is very honest. He's not his dad as a football man, but he's far superior to his dad as a businessman. I don't think that Mark Davis gets enough credit. He's eaten over $100 million in contracts when he's got coaches wrong. He's willing to spend the money to win. I understand that there are things about his dad that's not Mark, but there's things about Mark that wasn't his dad. I don't think Mark gets enough respect from Raider Nation. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, it's difficult. Yeah, he deserves respect, but I'll tell you what, to be honest, winning brings more respect. And see, so I hate to say it, but when Mark is able to, he did have that success when Jack Del Rio came in that where they went 12-4, things started to look up. The thing about it is now, if Mark can get the winning on the field, get the correct coaches, the correct players, get some continuity in the organization on the field and on the staff, and allow that to percolate and grow and mature. And then once the winning comes, then now the accolades for him will be there. It's like the CEO of a company. When Mark's stock is up, that CEO is revered more than the guy whose stock is in the tank. And so, unfortunately, a lot of the acclaim to which Mark merits and deserves is not there because people don't see the franchise as being a difference maker and an icon on the field anymore. And that only can be done once winning is reestablished. And that's where Antonio, he's got a job to do. He's got to bring back. Now, the players seem to really respond well to him. They're enthused by him. They've got the talent. You got to be able to put it together. You got to put the game plan together offensively, defensively, and special teams. And you got to go out and the field. And you got to. It's a quarterback-driven league. Let's be honest. And so that's why it's so important to give Aiden as many weapons as possible. Allow him to execute. For Luke and the other coaches on offense to determine what can Aiden do. I can't bring the Chicago Bear playbook here. I can't bring the Green Bay Packer playbook here. I can't bring the Kansas City Chief playbook here. I can't Xerox it and turn the colors from red to silver and black and just hand it out. I can't take the Bear thing because we don't have those players. We've got to design the offense about what all of our individual players can do and feature them and create an offense around their abilities. I got to play with the players I have, not the players who I had or the players who I wish I have. I got to play with the guys I got. So I got to cook the meal with the ingredients that I got on the shelf and in the fridge. I can't be cooking, filet mignon and I got hamburger in the refrigerator. I got to have a menu that works with hamburger. Conversely with steak, whatever. So now let's go to work on these guys, evaluate them, what their skills are, what their assets are, what the tangibles they have, and we're going to feature what they do best. And then it's honing the skill, the timing, and all that. But I'm not going to try to put a square peg in a round hole. Offensively.
Winning covers a multitude of sins, doesn't it?
As John Madden used to always say, it's a great deodorant. It masks a lot of stink.
All right, Coach, last question from me. I have an issue with today's offensive coaches that irritates the snot out of me. And it'll be 3rd and 4, and they throw a 2-yard pass. 3rd and 7, they throw 5 yards. Madden used to scream about this on TV.
Yes.
You got to know where the chains are and throw past the chains on 3rd down. Now you'll hear coaches, oh, but we'd rather check down and see if he can run for it. But it's like the prevent defense prevents you from winning. I think this is one of the most ignorant philosophies in coaching. Do you agree or disagree?
Okay, let me say this about that, as we used to say. And Freddie Blitnikoff, who I've known for 1,000 years, coached with him and everything. We always had a little buzzword that we would throw out on 3rd down: sticks. Know where the sticks are. Okay. Now here's the thing. And Sid taught me this 1,000 years ago. He says, kid, look at, if I have 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, I can call a pattern I like, knowing that if I have to throw a side adjust route or a hot route, that hot route can get me the 1st down. If my yardage needed to gain the 1st down is more than the hot route is going to give me, I must call a protection that allows me to have a pass call to be able to get the receivers beyond the sticks for the 1st down. So if it's 3rd and 1 to 3, 3rd and 1 to 4, and I can call a pattern knowing that if they do blitz me, we got a side adjust. We got that now. If I hit the side adjust on the peak route, on the slant route, on the now route or whatever, and that's going to get me the 1st down, I can do that. But if it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, I better have the protection that allows me to get beyond the sticks. And too frequently in today's game, we have protections that don't meld and fit with the yardage that is needed. And so therefore, they're calling a route, and then under duress, you got to get the ball out of your hands, and you're short of where you need for the sticks because protection comes first. The pattern hinges upon the protection. I've got to be able to protect the quarterback, afford the dog pickup, blitz pickup. If I need the stick, if I need the yards, I got to call a protection that's going to allow me to throw a pattern that get me the yards I need, so I don't have to get the ball out of my hands early, prematurely. Then they're going punt team because the defense dictated to me rather than me dictating to the defense.
Coach, I don't know if you realize it, but you were just preaching to an evangelical choir. I'm glad you're not taking an offering because I'd be giving. Hallelujah.
Hondo, it's great. I love it. You're fabulous. You do a great job.
This guy, ladies and gentlemen, just served you a buffet of football goodness that there's no place in Vegas going to serve you food that good. He is a living offensive icon. He's a legendary Raider. You're going to be seeing a lot of them. We're going to be talking about getting him part of our Sports Illustrated team covering the Raiders. He is a national treasure, a wealth of information. And let me tell you, a terrific man, the one and only, the great coach, Tom Walsh. Coach, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate it, Hondo. I'm glad to help you out and hope you have fun and good success with your program.
Thanks, buddy. That's a great Tom Walsh.